Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Dhyayamo Dhavalavagunthanavatim Tejo Mahim Naishtikim Snigdhapangavilokinim Bhagavatim Mandasmitashremukhim Vatsalyamritavarshiniim Sumadhuram Sankirtanalapiniim Shyamangim Madhusiktasuktim Amritanandatmikam Ishwarim Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Om Amriteshwaryai Namah. Let us continue with our discussion on Bhaja Govindam. We have discussed so far verses until the 28th, and today we'll do the 29th. So as always, let us first quickly go over the gist of every verse that we have discussed till now, and then move on to the 29th. Very first verse was about how we make life all complicated with all the grammar that we set for life. We need to go beyond that by developing devotion and humility. The second verse was about wealth, the tendency we have to accumulate wealth. Try to go beyond that and try to stick to dharma. Interestingly, that is the topic that we are going to discuss today too. The third verse is about going beyond the attraction, the bodily attraction that we have, to understand the true beauty. The fourth verse is about how life is unpredictable and can throw any form of surprises at us. The better we are prepared, better we would fare in life. The fifth verse was about how we'll have following and people around us as long as we have wealth and we have abilities. Once that depletes, people will fade away from around us too. The sixth verse was about as long as this body has life, we will be considered by people. And then it's natural that people are going to forget about us. Seventh verse, every stage of our life, we are obsessed with various different things: childhood, youth, old age. Seldom do we think about what really needs to be focused on: the unchanging truth, the supreme. The eighth verse is about just summarizing the limitations of relationship and then raising the question, who am I? The ninth verse was about, now that we are going in the quest of understanding who am I, where do we begin? Begin with right company. Right company will help us overcome attachments. That will resolve the delusion that we are in. That will reveal the truth to us. The 10th verse was about how the various things that we hold significant in various phases of life, eventually they become insignificant. Rather, if we understand that, the impermanence, well and good for us, the earlier we understand that, especially when we deal with them. The 11th verse was about, now that we deal with, we own the things that we own, the things that we deal with are all impermanent in nature, then why take pride in them? There's no meaning in that. The 12th verse is about how life throws at us experiences that are dual in nature. The less we get pulled by each of the emotions of these such experiences, the dual experiences, better we would do in life. 13th was about good company, once again, especially company of a Mahatma, a Sadguru. That is the only thing that will take us across the ocean of transmigration, the ocean of samsara. The 14th verse was about how now we are trying to grow spiritually. It is least important how we grow out the outward show off that we have of spiritual growth. Rather, the spiritual growth needs to happen within and let it organically reflect outward. 15th and 16th verses were about desires. We lose everything. We lose our abilities, we lose people, we lose our charm and everything, but still we don't lose our grip on desires. So it's a reminder, both of those verses, they are a reminder for us to just let go of these desires. Those are the ones that create problem. Even that kind of ties to today's discussion that we have. Desires. 17th verse is about austerities and rituals. They are, of course, very good for us as we begin our spiritual journey, but eventually we need to outgrow them. It's like outgrowing the school. We don't sit in the school forever. We learn and then we move on, we graduate. Similarly, austerities and rituals are the ones that get us disciplined, but then we need to go beyond, not stick on to the austerities and rituals. 18th verse is about dispassion. One who has dispassion in any condition the person be would ever be content, would ever be happy. The 19th verse, one who has the mind fixed on the divine, the unchanging supreme, any condition or situation the person is, will only rejoice, rejoice, and rejoice. The 20th verse is about how we need to imbibe the principles behind all that we deal with as part of spiritual practice. Pilgrimages that we go, River Ganga has a significance. Rather than just taking a mechanical dip in River Ganga, imbibe the significance what Mother Ganga represents. Similarly with Bhagavad Gita, not just mechanically chanting the verses, rather imbibe the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, develop devotion towards the divine. The 21st verse is about how we are stuck in the vicious cycle of birth and death, and what keeps us in that vicious cycle? Desires and attachment. Again, the topic that we are going to discuss today. The 22nd verse is about a true yogi. Who a true yogi is? One who takes the minimum from others, from the society, and gives the maximum. And the life of such a being is very difficult to comprehend and understand. The 23rd verse, 24th and 25th are about who am I? Again, inquiring who am I and trying to understand the I, understand the me, devoid of the dependencies that I have, the people, the things that I possess. Let go of that and realize the oneness in me, in others. The oneness in me and others, the divine that is residing in me is in others, maintaining equanimity. That's what 24th and 25th verse that we discussed about. The 26th verse was about letting go of negativities like lust, anger, greed, etc. They are the ones that act as hurdles from us realizing the oneness in me with others. So let go of them and realize our true self. That is the ultimate knowledge that we need to get over the hell-like situation otherwise that we would be in. The 27th verse was about Bahiranga Sadhana, the outward spiritual practices. The four Bahiranga Sadhanas that were listed were chanting and imbibing the Gita and the 1,000 names, have the mind ever be focused on the divine. Third one, direct the mind towards good company. And fourth, give unconditionally to those in need. Bahiranga sadhana, outward sadhana, spiritual practice. 28th verse, which we discussed the last week, was to remind ourselves about death being an indisputable part of life. We are born, so we would be dead at some point. We will have to leave at some point of time. So rather lead a meaningful life so that we approach death with the right attitude and incurring least amount of karma or papa, consequences of our action that we have to deal with later. So that's where we ended the last week. We'll move on to the 29th verse. And before we go to the 29th verse, I had a question. One of you asked me about the 28th verse that we discussed the last time. We discussed the 28th verse, the first line of the 28th verse as Sukhata kriyate kama bhoga. And the question was, the person heard it as or has seen it as Rama Bhoga instead of Kama Bhoga. Both of them are true. I don't know which one is the exact one that got composed because it was about 1200, 1400 years ago now. So it is done both the ways, Kama Bhoga and Rama Bhoga. I just chose to go with Kama Bhoga. One main reason, because we have dealt with the term Kama and we know we equate it to desires. That way, we could understand the verse that way. Rama Bhoga is also right. Rama Bhoga also actually means more or less desires that are trying to satisfy our senses, our sensual pleasure that we seek. Rama Bhoga, sensual pleasure. Rama typically translates to, Rama Bhoga is typically translating to our pleasures, the sensual pleasures that is with respect to the spouse, with respect to someone who we are very attached to, is what the literal meaning of the term would be. I went with Kama Bhoga for a selfish reason too, because if you go with Rama Bhoga, then there would be the question, what does Ramanandamrita mean? Because there is a Rama in that. So I just decided, let's avoid the complication. Rama technically means something that is pleasurable, something that is soft, something that is mild. Technically, that's what it means. And maybe it's an offshoot of that Rama, the other, the one for one when that is taken in a negative sense, or when that is taken out of dharma, it becomes satisfying the desires of the senses. So that's why I went with Kama Bhoga, to keep it simple. But anyway, because this question was raised, I thought I should clarify that. It could be Kama Bhoga or Rama Bhoga. I have heard more of Rama Bhoga than Kama Bhoga, but I just conveniently chose this. So just wanted to let you know about that. So now moving on to the 29th verse, which we are going to discuss today. 29th verse is focused more on wealth and our urge or our desire for wealth. So the verse goes as Arthamanartha bhavaya nityam nasti tatah sukha lesha satyam putradapi dhanabhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihita riti. So as always, let us first look into the pronunciation word by word, then move on to the meaning. Please respond twice after me. Artham. Artham. It is TH, so tha. TH, tha. Artham. 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 Anartham. 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 So artham and anartham together would become arthamanartham. 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 Bhavaya. There's a H after B, so again stress on the consonant bha and A with a bar, so it is bha. Bhavaya. 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 Nityam. 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 Arthamanartham bhavaya nityam. The second line, nasti. 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 Tatah. 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 Sukha. KH. So kha. Sukha. 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 Lesha. S with the mark on the top. So flat tongue and the sound sh. Lesha. 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 Satyam. 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 Nasti tatah sukha lesha satyam. Putradapi. So you could split it into putrad api. Those are the two terms. Together it would be putradapi. 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 Dhana. Dhana. DH. Dhana. Stress on the D. Dha. Dhana. Bhajam. Again BH. So bha. Bhajam. 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 Dhana bhajam. Dhana bhajam. Dhana bhajam. Bhitihi. Again BH. Bha. Bhitihi. 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 Here, the first I has a bar over it. The second I doesn't have a bar over it. That's why it is bhiti. Had both of them had a bar over it, it would be bhiti. Had none of them had a bar over it, it would be bhiti. So it is first one long, the second one short. Bhiti. Putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti. Sarvatraisha. It is sarvatra and esha. S with the mark on the bottom. So rolling your tongue up, sha, sha. So sarvatra esha. Together would be sarvatraisha. 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 Vihita. 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 Riti. 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 The same logic as bhiti. The first I has a bar. The second I doesn't have a bar. So first one is long. Second one is short. Riti. Sarvatraisha vihita riti. So the 29th verse is Arthamanartham bhavaya nityam nasti tatah sukha lesham lesha satyam putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihita riti. So let's chant it in tune. If you're familiar, please join me the first time, else join me the second time. Let's start. Arthamanartham bhavaya nityam nasti tata sukha lesha satyam putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihitariti. Once more. Arthamanartham bhavaya nityam nasti tata sukha lesha satyam putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihitariti. Looking into the meaning, artham, artham referring to wealth that we accumulate. Artham. Anartham. Artham also has the meaning. The meaning of the term artham is meaning. So anartham means meaningless, negating the meaning of the word meaning. So anartham means meaningless. So artham, anartham, it's a beautiful usage. The same term used twice, both the terms meaning different. Artham, anartham. So wealth, the second one meaningless because anartham. So wealth is of no meaning, is how the verse begins. Bhavaya nityam. Bhavaya, imbibe that, or remind yourself that, or ever contemplate on that. Nityam, ever. So always remind yourselves that wealth is meaningless. Nasti, na asti. Asti is there, being. Na asti, not being. So not there, what? Tatah. Tatah, from it, or from there, sukha, happiness, pleasure, lesha, little bit, satyam, truth. So what is it said? Nasti, there is not, from there, tatah, sukha, any form of pleasure, even little, lesha, satyam, that is the truth. The truth remains that there is not even a little bit of happiness to be drawn or would be drawn from wealth. There is no happiness to be drawn from wealth. Putradapi. Putrat, from the son or from the offspring, from the child. Api, even. Dhana bhajam. Dhana, wealth. Dhana bhaja, one who owns a lot of wealth, or one who owns wealth. So dhana bhajam ends with a sound. Dhana bhajam. That is the second row in the table, basically referring to something. So referring to the wealthy, putradapi. From the son, the person does what? Bhiti. He has fear. So from the son, wealth is such that it would make even the father fear the son. Wealth is such, is what the verse is talking about. Sarvatra, everywhere. Esha, this very thing. Vihita, is how it is destined to be, is how it is defined to be. Riti, the trend, the way of it. So that is the way of it everywhere. It's a universal thing. So this verse, basically summarizing the points, it is trying to tell us about the unnecessary importance that we give to wealth. So it says wealth happens to be the very basis that we think of happiness. So happiness, we always equate it to wealth when we live in materialistic world. Understandably so, we do that. But then the fact remains that happiness is not from wealth. So remind ourselves that wealth is not the basis of happiness. Wealth often takes us to the level that we even lose close relationships that we have. The relationship between the father and the son should be such that they should have so much faith, so much trust in that relationship. Even that gets broken because of wealth. So let us be cognitive of that. Let us be aware of that. This is the universal fact. It happens in every case, or it happens universally, not in every case. I should take back my words. It is a universal thing, is what this verse is trying to point out. Again, before we get into the discussion, let us understand, we have discussed this before, it doesn't mean wealth is bad. The whole point is how we handle wealth is the gist of this verse. Not telling, forget about wealth, let go of wealth, become poor, is not what this verse is trying to convey to us. So we did discuss this in the second verse, right? Mudhajahi dhanagama trishna. The foolish one would always get attracted towards wealth, or will have the greed in accumulating more and more and more. So we discussed that during the second verse, and we discussed about how we should overcome that greed, that unnecessary urge to accumulate more and more and more. So when we discuss about wealth, it is about getting over that tendency to be unnecessarily obsessed with wealth. So while we discussed the second verse, we were discussing about how happiness we relate it to wealth. We kind of make it proportional. More wealth, more happiness. Because more wealth we have, more things that we get. So health is based out of happiness. From a materialistic point of view, it makes sense. But does it really happen? Are we always happy the more and more things that we get? Is the question we need to ask. When we have wealth, we can buy a house, we can buy a car, we can buy a new phone on a regular basis. When we get $1 million as a lottery ticket, we win the lottery ticket, of course that is going to give us happiness. But the question then remains, is that true happiness? That's the question we need to ask. So we are not talking about we won't be happy with wealth. The question is whether we would be permanently happy with wealth. Because we equate, from materialistic point of view, we would equate wealth and happiness. It's like the graph. Are we showing the graph? So wealth, as wealth goes up, happiness also goes up. That's how we always think. But is that the fact? That's our perception. But in real world, does that happen? The real world, it happens otherwise. The next graph shows, though wealth may go up, it would happen that happiness goes up, but it's not going to go along with the wealth all the time. What happens? The graph has three parts. What are the three parts? Initially, definitely we get excited when we purchase something, when we acquire something, or when we get a lot of money. Of course, our excitement is going to go up. We would become happy. But that happiness is short-lived, is what we need to understand. And then what happens? We get a new car first 1 year, like we are really happy about the car. We show it off, we boast about it. After a year or so, then it's kind of a swinging region wherein we are excited about it, not excited about it, excited about it, not excited about it in different times. And then the period comes wherein all that excitement just fizzles out. Even that little bit of excitement that swings in and out also fizzles out. And that is the case with every materialistic thing that we have, be it people, be it relationship, be it something that we own. Every case, we would lose the so-called excitement, the happiness that we have initially. So is the problem with them or the thing is the question we need to ask. And what we have discussed throughout Bhaja Govindam is the problem is not with that, the problem is with us, is what we need to discuss now. So going with the first graph, as the wealth goes up, happiness also goes up. Our interpretation is that happiness is proportionally equated to wealth. As wealth goes up, our excitement or happiness also goes up. But if we think about wealth, when we think of wealth as money, money itself is unstable, right? The value of money keeps appreciating or depreciating. That itself is unpredictable. Then how can we say that our happiness would be steady when we depend on money? Because money itself is unpredictable. What we could buy with $10 a few years ago cannot be bought with the same amount of money now, right? $10 doesn't seem to have the value it had, say, 15 years ago. I remember it's about 15 years ago since I came to the US, the gas, we could get a gallon of gas for $1, less than $2. And now we cannot get gas today less than $5, say. Average, the national average is about $5. So does that mean, it basically means $1.80 is not as worthy as it used to be 15 years ago. I remember reading about how currency itself is so unpredictable. This article was about an African country where there were few billionaires and millionaires, and they had a lot of money in their bank account. And this country, all of a sudden, in a matter of few months, completely the whole economic system in that country was in shambles. And the millionaires and the billionaires who had their money in the local currency still had the same amount of money in their bank account and in their deposits and in their investments. But because it was in their own in the currency of that country, which fell down, I think it became insanely low, that it was equal to like few tens of thousands of dollars per $1 would be tens of thousands of local currency. So think of the billionaires. The so-called billionaires would not be even $100,000ers, right? They would be, their amount of money they would have is completely gone. They didn't do anything. They didn't buy anything. They didn't sell anything. They didn't do anything. They were just at home and their money was gone. They were billionaires and they are no more billionaires now. Millionaires, they are no more millionaires now. So the point is, if we gauge our happiness based on money, money itself is so unpredictable, then how can our happiness be steady and predictable? The value of possessions that we have, even that keeps changing. Say we have a house that we own. The value of the house can go up, can go down. It's completely unpredictable. When would the value of the house go up? When would the value of the house go down? So when we own the house, we cannot be completely at ease thinking, oh, I have an asset. I have so much money. We can never say, probably after 10 years, the house will be of no value at all. Similarly, with the car. We own a car, the car value can completely go down. And interestingly, these days I have heard the car values have gone up. So you may sell your used car for more money than what you bought it for. Very atypical for a car, because car value always depreciates. Now car value has gone up such that the value of your car that you bought recently would be now more than what you actually spent. So if you sell it now, you'll get more money. So shouldn't that be a great thing? Even that seems to be not that great, because a devotee recently shared with me that he or she moved from one state to the another state. And when the person thought of changing the registration tag to the state that they moved to, the rule is that you have to pay 3% of the value of the car for changing the registration. Now the person says, oh, the value of my car is so high that I don't want to spend on that. So value going up also seemed to be a problem. So again, I was just trying to impress upon you, or impress upon us, for us to understand that when we equate happiness with wealth, it is very evident that wealth itself is fluid, is not stable. So if our happiness is based on wealth, our happiness is also not going to be stable. And that's not the kind of happiness we want, right? If you really ask our conscience, that's not the happiness we want. That's why this verse basically says, Nasti tatah sukha lesham lesha satyam. There is no even a little bit of happiness in wealth. It is an arguable or debatable point. The point that is made here is talking about true stable happiness. True stable happiness, when we think about it from the point of view of true stable happiness, yes, equating that or basing that on the money, wealth, definitely is not a meaningful thing. Then our happiness is also going to be fluid. So that's the point this verse is trying to point out to us. So money isn't the solution for every problem that we have. We may have problems that come out of money, and we may also think, oh, I have problems. Money is the solution. Many people say, I don't have money, that's why I have problems. Sometimes not having money could be a better thing. Like a person who has an expensive car is so good that he always wants to go in that car. Say the person has high blood pressure or has cholesterol. Just driving every morning in the car is not going to help with that. He needs to walk. Only when he walks will his health become better. So just having money doesn't resolve issues. Similarly, say a boy who gets chauffeured to the school every day, has a luxury car, has a chauffeur who takes him or her to the school every day. Once the car breaks down and he's forced to walk to the school, that's when he sees his friends and walks with them to the school, and then realizes how much fun it is to walk with your friends and share your thoughts and all the fun that friends have. Then on, the boy decides he does not want to go in the car to the school. Rather, he would walk to the school every day. So money may not be the solution for all the problems that we have. Money could be the problem, could be the source of a lot of problems that we have, and money may not be the solution for all the problems that we have. It's something that we know, but it's something that we need to keep reminding ourselves. That's why these verses keep repeating. These specific topics keep repeating. So again, the point is not that we should just completely let go of all the wealth that we have. The point is not to think that wealth is evil. We do need wealth, we do need money to live in this materialistic world. The whole point is how we handle it, and handle it with the understanding that wealth has an expiry date. When you handle something with that, last week we discussed life has an expiry date. And when we deal with life with that understanding, life becomes meaningful. Similarly, wealth also has expiry date. Anything that we possess has an expiry date. So when we deal with it with that understanding, automatically our attitude towards that would be different. We would be able to develop some level of detachment towards that thing or person. Amma always reminds us, telling money is not evil. It's not that the scriptures point out that don't have money. It's like the water. Water could be dangerous for us if we drown in water. But we are on a boat, we can sail in the water. So it's like we are sailing on the water of life, which is dangerous. But as long as we stay afloat, we are fine. The moment we let the water into the boat, then there is a problem. So Amma says, deal with money, deal with wealth, with the attitude that we always remain afloat. The moment we let it come into us, wherein wealth dictates terms to us, wealth decides whether I'm going to be happy or not, then there is a problem. We have let the water into the boat. Awakened Children, Volume 1, page 84. Amma says, children, it doesn't matter how much wealth we have. If its place and the use in life is not understood, only sorrow will come. Even if there is immeasurable wealth, the happiness is momentary that we get from it. Wealth cannot give eternal bliss. Didn't Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, and all these are characters from the various epics in the Indian tradition, Sanatana Dharma, and others all possess vast wealth. Did they ever have mental peace and tranquility? What peace did Ravana have, although he possessed fabulous wealth? They all lived egoistically, swerving from the path of truth. They did many actions which should not be done. Thus, they lost peace and tranquility. Eternal bliss is not gained from wealth. Only non-eternal happiness can be gained from wealth, like the graph that we saw, the second graph. Then you might ask, how can one live without riches? Do we have to abandon the wealth that we have? Mother does not say to abandon anything. Bliss and peace will become our wealth if we understand its proper place. Wealth is like rice with sand in it for those who have turned Godward. Rice with sand, when we have rice with sand, we'll always handle it with care. We won't blindly eat the rice. When we have rice with sand, we'll always be careful when we eat the rice. We'll try to remove the sand out of it and then consume the rice. Similarly, wealth should not be blindly dealt with. Rather, it should be dealt with the right attitude, with awareness, is what Amma is trying to teach us through this passage in Awakened Children. So it's not that money is evil or wealth is the issue that we have. It is our attitude towards it. That is the problem. And what is our typical attitude towards wealth? Our desire to get more and more. And the more we get, more we want. That's the interesting part of it. We have discussed the Purusharthas. Purusharthas, the basis of Sanatana Dharma, the four pillars of life. What are they? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. We discussed this during the second verse, so it's good to just revise this very point that we discussed. Dharma, righteousness, my responsibility, my duties, and the right way of doing it. Dharmically doing something. Artha, wealth. Kama, desires. Moksha, liberation. Artha and Kama are sandwiched between Dharma. When we use the Artha, when we use wealth, dharmically, when we marry Artha and Dharma, our Kama would be such that we would desire only for Moksha. The interesting part with Artha and Kama, so basically with going per the Purushartha approach, Artha is part of life. The scriptures don't say don't have wealth. They say have wealth as you need it. But the problem is when Artha and Kama are intertwined. So in the picture, we have Artha and Kama. When we have wealth, we think we'll be satisfied. But we'll think when we have wealth, we'll automatically desire will go up. We want more wealth. So what happens? Kama again leads to more wealth. When you have more wealth, then you want more wealth. And then when you have desire for more wealth, you will somehow make more wealth, and more wealth will lead to more wealth. And it goes in a vicious cycle. That's the vicious cycle we are talking about. The more we try to acquire, the more and more we need to take birth, so as to compensate for all that we acquire. So rather, if we just remove the Kama from the equation, we have Dharma, Artha and Moksha. If we can use Artha rather than using the wealth to satisfy our personal desires, I shouldn't say personal desires, we would have personal desires. The basic ones, we should satisfy it with the wealth. When we try to take the Kama, the unnecessary desires that we have, if we try to take it out of the equation, then what happens? Through Dharma, we utilize Artha, wealth, and it leads us directly to Moksha. Kama is not there. That's the straight arrow. Artha and Dharma will automatically lead us for Moksha. In this case, Artha, wealth, can help us get to Moksha, as long as Kama, as long as selfish desires aren't in the equation. That way, even wealth will become a good thing. That I was trying to give this example just to point out to the point, to the thing that I mentioned, that wealth needn't be evil all the time. Wealth is not the problem all the time. It is our attitude, it's our Kama, it is our desires, unexplained, unsubstantiated desires. That is where the problem is. So if Kama disappears, we have a direct path to Moksha, even with wealth. So that's the point Amma was making in the Awakened Children passage, telling just having wealth is not a problem. It is how we look at wealth. We need to keep it at the right place. That's where the whole problem is. Stay afloat on the water, not let the water into the boat. We're thinking about wealth and desire and giving. A good example that we have is Amma herself. Ashram began in a very modest way. Our ashram had a very humble beginning. When the initial monks came into the ashram, there was nothing much. They were just a thatched hut where Amma used to give darshan. That used to be the cowshed. We have discussed that in one of the examples. Cowshed of Amma's home, where Amma was born. Sugunachan's home, Amma's paternal home. Father's home. So Sugunachan let Amma use the cowshed to give darshan. So that was the structure, so-called ashram. That was the ashram. And Amma often Amma had to go to the neighbor's house asking for alms, asking for food, so that she could feed the monks who came into the ashram in the early times. That was how the ashram began, a modest, humble beginning. And then, as more and more people came to know about Amma, the ashram structure started becoming bigger. And then at one point of time, it was decided to build the Kali temple, the hall that we have, the very big, the front of the ashram. And there were people who made some donation so as to build the Kali temple. And most of the Kali temple was done based on voluntary service by the ashram residents. They used to do the construction work, carry the cement, the sand, mix them, lay the bricks and all that. So that's how Kali temple came into being. But then, when the Kali temple was decided to build the Kali temple, that's when few people brought to Amma's attention about a completely dilapidated, completely ignored orphanage about an hour and a half from where Amma's ashram is in Paripalli. And they said the children there are starving, they are completely malnourished, there's no money to take care of it. The organization that was taking care of it is completely helpless now, and there's no one to take care of them. And without any hesitation, Amma immediately appropriated the donation that came for building the Kali temple. She said that project goes into a halt, and all this donation goes towards rehabilitating the school, the orphanage, and the children there. It would be completely dedicated for the children. And that's how that's perhaps the first major project the ashram took up, charitable project, which has now grown into the worldwide network of embracing the world. That was the beginning. So the moment when someone needed help, that which was supposed to be meant for the ashram, the headquarters of Amma's whole organization, Amma just said, nothing doing. All this goes to those in need. So the attitude of not holding on to wealth and give is the biggest gesture that we can have. To give is very important. To have that attitude of not being influenced by our desire to accumulate and retain is the biggest thing of it. I usually think about it, and I have shared it with a few people who discuss about it. So many, the whole organization, Amma's organization, Amma says it is out of a lot of hard work by Amma's children. Lot of us do service, lot of us make contribution towards this organization selflessly, and that's how Amma is able to reach out to so many people. Amma keeps mentioning that. So I discuss about it with people when this topic comes up, telling donating, of course, is a great thing. It's not about what was donated, how much was donated. What is more inspiring is that heart to donate. Even if you are a rich person, you're a millionaire, multi-millionaire, but even to give a few $1 million, you need to have a heart to part from that money, which we discussed. Kama and Artha are so intertwined that it's just very difficult to get out of that cycle. And someone to make a donation, be it $10, be it $100, be it $1 million, to make that donation, at least temporarily or momentarily, we are getting out of that cycle. That is what is inspiring. To get out of that cycle of Kama and Artha, we get out of that, and that's when we have the feeling to give, to donate. That's what happened with the Paripalli school too. Whatever was meant for our own building, our own ashram, Amma said, nothing doing, let's take up the school. And it's been functional for 30 plus years now, with 500 plus children there who live there, who have been taken care of right from 30 years ago when the orphanage was adopted. So it's not about what you give, it's about the heart to give. That is what is the most inspiring part of it. So the Purusharthas point out to that. As much as we can, take the Kama out of the equation. Let it be Dharma, Artha, Moksha. Because the moment Kama is gone, how much ever money we have, it doesn't become a hurdle for us to grow spiritually, because we would be using it for the sake of Dharma automatically, not for our personal desires. And the more and more we have Kama in the equation, more and more problems that we have. That's what the third line of the verse talks about. Putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti. It gets us to a level that even the most respected bonds that we have in the world, between father, mother, between siblings, between friends, even they get disturbed when desire and wealth come together. We would have heard in news, and we may have even seen it firsthand in different families, or probably in our own family, wherein there is dispute for the ancestral wealth that we have, the ancestral property that we have, siblings fighting amongst themselves. There's a son who killed the mother to get all the money from her, and father killing the son so that all the money could go towards the daughter, or things like that, or likes one particular son. When this money comes into equation, is not completely the problem. The money, along with karma, desire, when they come into the equation, that's when all these problems come. So that's what the third line of the verse is pointing out. When money and the wrong attitude come into equation, even the father has to fear the son. Whereas the father and the son, the relationship should be of complete trust, right? So that is the point the verse is trying to make. Not that money is evil, it's our attitude. And that's basically the discussion, the points I had just before I conclude. When we discuss about wealth, we have discussed about all forms of wealth. When you say wealth, wealth is not just money. Wealth could be knowledge. Wealth could be wisdom. Wealth could be food, in form of food. Dhanya, Lakshmi, grains, food. Wealth could be love and compassion. All of them are wealth. Are the moral character that we have is our wealth. All of them are wealth. And the same principle applies here too. Because with respect to knowledge, with respect to love and compassion, we just discussed last week, was it last week that we discussed, the more we give, the more we get. It's unlike the money, wealth. Knowledge, love, compassion is such that the more we give, the more we get. But this principle that we discussed about karma, when karma comes into equation, the same principle holds here too. The moment we start thinking selfishly, be it education, be it knowledge, be it food, be it love and compassion, even that gets tainted. Because if we are studious only because I want to succeed, even that knowledge is probably going to be of more of harm than benefit to others and even yourself. I remember, I guess that's the case in the United States too. I did my undergrad in India, and there will always be this divide between the studious first benchers and the not so studious backbenchers. That happens here too, right? And the studious first benchers are always, there'll be at least one or two characters who are very competitive. And they want to learn, and they want to learn more than whatever the other students in the class. Especially, I remember during my undergrad, I used to have a friend. He didn't mean harm to anyone, it's just the nature. He would start preparing for the exam 3 or 4 weeks ago. So now the exams are not round the corner, the exams are far near the horizon, and he starts preparing for the exam. And me and my friend, we wait till the exam comes round the corner. That's how it used to be. So this particular friend is not just concerned about studying for exam, being prepared for it. He is also concerned about how much do others know, how much have others learned. So every now and then he would come to all the rooms and he would like, hey, did you learn this topic? And then he would be so satisfied, and you say, oh, I don't know about this topic. He feels so satisfied. Or you try to tell him, ask him, do you know this topic? Can you teach me? He'll be like, oh, I have not learned it. I'll teach you some other time. So, there would be this hesitation to teach. It's a typical thing that happens everywhere. And then me and this particular friend who used to study together, when the exam is around the corner, we used to play a prank on this person. We would just take some random topic which is not part of the syllabus, and when he comes around us, because he has his ears open, what are others studying, we'll purposefully discuss this topic which is not even part of the syllabus, just to prank on him, play a prank on him. And this person, the moment he hears that topic, his eyes, ears, everything, they just, become bigger. And the next moment he'll just rush back to his room. And we are very sure he goes back to his room and goes through the book and tries to find out how come I missed this topic. They are learning it. I've not learned that topic. That's the so it all more or less we would always be successful with the prank, and we've done it for all these many years that we were in the college, and it always worked. And after some time, he would come to us and he was like, "Hey, this particular topic, do you know anything about it?" And then we tell him, "It is not part of the syllabus. We were just playing a prank on you." So when not even gaining knowledge, it becomes just to satisfy my needs. It is not helping me. It is not helping anyone else. Similarly, even love and compassion. When you say love and compassion, compassion is when love is selfless. When love is maligned with selfishness, what happens? We become obsessed about things. We become obsessed about people in such a way that it doesn't help the person, doesn't help others too. We are too obsessed about my phone. Anyone who touches the phone, they're going to have a bad experience with us. We are obsessed about a particular person that we don't give the person freedom in doing whatever he or she wants, always being around them. That's what they call stalking, right? So love, when it comes with selfishness, even there, the problem. So this is the case with every form of wealth. When selfishness comes and kind of blemishes it, it's not going to help me, it's not going to help anyone else. So the verse, once again, I'm just reiterating the point. It's not about making wealth look evil, or making wealth, showing the wealth in bad light. Rather, what we need to understand or think about more importantly is our attitude towards wealth. Always remain afloat. Don't let the water of wealth get into our boat. So that's what the verse is trying to teach us. I hope what I discussed made sense. So let's conclude the discussion here. It is 2 minutes until 8:30. So we have 29 verses that we have discussed so far. You think we should chant the verses, 29 verses, or I just see a smile. So I think we'll take it as a no for today. We chanted it the last week, right? Or should we just do it? Okay. We have only 2 more verses after this. So we have 2 more weeks of Bhaja Govindam. Then we have to move on to the next text, whatever we select. So I think, should we chant or not? No one's telling in the chat anything? No chat today. It's disabled for today. Okay. So I think let's chant. It takes only about 10 to 12 minutes. So any one of you who would want to leave, feel free to do so. We'll just chant the verses and then conclude. So together. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukran Karane. Moodha jahi dhanagama trishnam kuru sadbuddhim manasi vitrishnam yallabhase nija karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chittam naristana Nabhidesham दृष्ट्वा मागा मोहावेशम् एतन्मांस वसादिविकारं मनसि विचिन्तय वारं वारं नलिनीदलगत जलमतितरलं तद्वज्जीवितम् अतिशयचपलं विद्धिव्याध्यभिमानक्रस्तं लोकं शोकहतं च समस्तं यावत् वित्तोपार्जनसक्तः तावन्निज परिवारो रक्तः पश्चाज्जीवति जर्जरदेहे वार्ता कोऽपि न पृच्छति गेहे यावत् पवनो निवसति देहे तावत् पृच्छति कुशलं गेहे गतवति वायौ देहापाये भार्या बिभ्यति तस्मिन् काये बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः काते कान्ता कस्ते पुत्रः संसारोऽयम् अतीव विचित्रः कस्य त्वं कः कुत आयातः तत्त्वं चिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः सत्सङ्गत्वे निस्सङ्गत्वं निस्सङ्गत्वे निर्मोहत्वं निर्मोहत्वे निश्चलतत्वं निश्चलतत्वे जीवन्मुक्तिः वयसि गते कः कामविकारः शुष्के नीरे कः कासारः क्षीणे वित्ते कः परिवारः ज्ञाते तत्त्वे कः संसारः मा कुरु धनजन यौवनगर्वं हरति निमेषात् कालसर्वं मायामयमिदम् अखिलं हित्वा ब्रह्मपदं त्वं प्रविश विदित्वा दीनयामिन्यौ सायं प्रातः शिशिरवसन्तौ पुनरायातः कालः क्रीडति गच्छत्यायुः तदपि न मुञ्चति आशावायुः काते कान्ता धनगतचिन्ता वातुल किं तव नास्ति नियन्ता त्रिजगति सज्जन संगतिरेका भवति भवार्णव तरणे नौका जटिलो मुण्डी लुञ्छितकेशः काषायाम्बर बहुकृतवेषः पश्यन्नपि च न पश्यति मूढः उदरनिमित्तं बहुकृतवेषः अङ्गं गलितं पलितं मुण्डं दशनविहीनं जातं तुण्डं वृद्धो याति गृहीत्वा दण्डं तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापिण्डम् अग्रे वह्निः पृष्ठे भानु रात्रौ चुबुकसमर्पितजानुः करतलभिक्षस्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चति आशापाशः कुरुते गङ्गासागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनम् अथवा दानं ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन भजते न मुक्तिं जन्मशतेन सुरमन्दिरतरु मूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलम् अजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रह भोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा संगरतो वा संगविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदधीता गङ्गाजललव कणिका पीता सकृदपि येन मुरारिसमर्चा क्रियते तस्य यमेन न चर्चा पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनम् इह संसारे बहुदुस्तारे कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे रथ्याचर्पट विरचितकन्थः पुण्यापुण्य विवर्जितपन्थः योगी योग नियोजितचित्तः रमते बालोन्मत्तवदेवा कस्त्वं कोऽहं कुत आयातः कामे जननी को मे ताप्तः इति परिभावय सर्वमसारं विश्वं त्यक्त्वा स्वप्नविचारम् त्वयि मयि चान्यत्रैको विष्णुः व्यर्थं कुप्यसि मय्यसहिष्णुः भवसमचित्तः सर्वत्र त्वं वाञ्छस्य चिरात् यति विष्णुत्वं शत्रौ मित्रे पुत्रे बन्धौ मा कुरु यत्नं विग्रहसन्धौ सर्वस्मिन्नपि पश्यात्मानं सर्वत्रोत्सृज भेदाज्ञानं कामं क्रोधं लोभं मोहं त्यक्त्वात्मानं pashyati soham atmajnana vihina mudha te pachyante narakanigodha Geyam Gita Nama Sahasram Dhyeyam Shripati Rupamajasram Neyam Sajjana Sange Chittam Deyam Dina Janaya Chavittam Sukhatah Kriyate Kama bhoga paschadhanta sharire roga yadyapi loke maranam sharanam tadapi na munchati papacharanam arthamanartham bhavaya nityam nasti tatah sukha lesha satyam putradapi dhana bhajam bhiti sarvatraisha vihitariti. Let's conclude, sincerely praying to the Almighty that every being in the creation be happy, content and peaceful. Let us chant the Shanti Mantra together 3 times. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.